before we leave the lakefront, Lake Michigan is one of the 5 Great Lakes. The Great Lakes are really, really cool. There are 5 lakes that hold 20% of all the fresh water in the world. Whoa. That means they're all huge. Lake Michigan is huge. Lake Michigan is about 100 miles and 300 miles up and down. And at its deepest, it's almost 1,000 feet deep. And yes, it's all fresh water if you're wondering. And if you're not wondering, yes, I get that question a lot. And of course, where the lake hooks up with the Chicago River is very strategic. It's very geographically strategic. It's the reason why the city exists. It's the reason why Native Americans were here long before this is ever a big city, including the Illini, the Miami, and the Potawatomi American Indians, who didn't tend to live here because this was all swamp. And it's still a swamp under all the pavement. Now, by the way, that's why we're flat. We're a very flat city. Rent a bike and take a bike ride. The weather's perfect for that. Now, moving on, the first building that I'll show you, ahead of us to your left, the tall, glassy building with the wavy balconies. That's Aqua. That's a lot of people's favorite building because those weird wavy balconies. They are real balconies. They're said to correspond to specific views you can get from inside the building. And that's kind of designed for its context, right? They call this contextualism, and we're going to see a lot of this on the tour. It's also built by Jeannie Gang, who heads her own architecture firm, Studio Gang Architects. That's the tallest building in the world built by a woman-led architecture firm. That's contextualism. It takes many different forms, and we're going to see a lot of it on the tour. Look forward to it. To your right, look at the large black skyscraper to your right. Oh, look, we've already learned something. It looks like Mies van der Rohe, right? That funny name, Mies van der Rohe. And by the way, I told you his buildings look exactly the same. They literally look exactly the same. This is AMA Plaza from 1969. Why are they so plain and also copycat? Mies van der Rohe has a famous quote that explains it. Less is more. That's a Mies van der Rohe quote. And this is the bare bones of a skyscraper. Steel to hold the building up and glass to close it in. That's all there is to it. That's why they call it glass box modernism, because it's literally a giant glass box. That's all there is to it. And that's AMA Plaza from 69. From 1967, ahead of us, check out the round skyscrapers, Marina City. They're apartments, you can tell, because they have balconies. And although their name is Marina City, Chicagoans don't call them that. There's a really cutesy nickname we use instead. It's the Corncob Towers. Adorable. And it is adorable. Now, Marina City's architect, Bertrand Goldberg, builds using circle forms. And there's a really, really great quote, a dramatic quote, that explains why he builds using circles. Quote, "We need to get people out of boxes. They're like psychological slums." Oh my goodness. Bertrand Goldberg thinks box-shaped buildings are dumb. He thinks circle shapes are more advantageous for architecture because they have a natural center to be taken advantage of. That's the idea. They call this style curvilinear modernism. Notice it's a contemporary glass box modernism. It was built like this to have open sightlines for open outcry trade, which is where people scream buy and sell at each other. And they use hand gestures, which need to be visible, thus open sightlines. Now it's a fitness club, go figure, but you'll see X's again later on the tour. And by the way, check out this coming up to your left. We're seeing all sorts of exciting stuff on the river. By the way, feel free to wave to the deckhand at the front of the boat. This is a river barge coming through. Just a little twitch of the hand for us. Now, this barge here, I want you to notice how long it is here and how the captain at the back in the tugboat is actually not in the same vessel. This is basically for cargo, and that's the captain driving it. And by the way, why does that person hang out in the front of the boat? The captain can't see anything, right? And there are kayakers on this river, so that's important. Now, this barge, that's what we're on. We're on a barge. We are all cargo, and our captain is pushing us from behind from a different vessel, a tugboat. This is one of our biggest boats in our fleet. This is Riverview. We also have City View, which is pretty much a twin. And this one's new from last year. It's our largest touring vessel. Great place for a canal. And France didn't use it. Chicago did. Chicago became a city in 1837, and then we opened the canal that still attaches us out to the Des Plaines River, the Illinois River, and then the Mississippi. It made us a hub of all shipping in the early U.S. We became the hub of the U.S. And then we stayed a hub with rail and air. That's why we're a big city. We're a hub 3 times over. O'Hare is recently the busiest airport in the world again. Very recently, as of last week. To your left, check out this curving building here. This is kind of reminiscent of the Corncob Towers, right? Same architect, Bertrand Goldberg from 1986. So this is 20 years later than Marina City. This is River City. And if you're familiar with the works of Antonio Gaudi in Barcelona, Spain, that's definitely an influence, for sure. Now, the South Branch is also a great time to talk about The most important event in Chicago's history, which I kind of mentioned earlier, it's a very easy guess, it's the fire. The fire started a few blocks off to your right, kind of where the cell tower is. It's not very scenic there. By the way, if you've been waiting to go to the bar, go visit Papa Bear now. But this is where the fire started. The fire started October 8th, 1871, right? We're coming up to the anniversary, so thus the festival. The first inaugural Chicago Fire Festival. And the fire was horrific. It burned for 3 days. It burned down 18,000 buildings. 5 square miles of the city became flattened. Over 300 people died and over 100,000 people became homeless. It's horrifying. I cannot imagine, it is unimaginable, that horror, right, to go through that. So what caused it, right, that's always the question, which is a natural question to ask. Here's my disappointing answer. Nobody knows what started the Great Fire. Sorry. There is a story that you're going to hear. I'm going to tell it to you, and some people are going to think this is true. It's not true. Okay, here's the story. Perhaps you've heard it. That a lady named Mrs. O'Leary had a barn in which a cow kicked over a lantern. That cow. And that's what started the fire, which is just a thrilling story. It's not that exciting. And it's not true. The reason we talk about it is because it was reported to be true after the fire. By the way, pause, cameras to your left. It was reported to be true. It's just that 20 years later, the journalists that reported this admitted that they had made it up to sell newspapers. And isn't that horrible of them, especially when you consider the fact that Mrs. O'Leary was a real person who had a barn where the cell tower is, and her barn burned down, and then she was blamed for the whole fire, and she was a scapegoat for the city. And it ruined her life. It's really sad to think about if you think about it for too long, so let's move on. Imagine instead, though, 9 drinking straws all attaching to each other, forming a square at the base under the same heavy gust of wind. It stays up. That's called structural integrity, and that's the Sears Tower. It's one tower made up of 9 towers that end at different heights. That's bundled tubes. Get your cameras out, point them to your right. Somebody likes attention. There it is. Isn't it beautiful? Oh, I think it's beautiful. The Sears Tower, built using bundled tubes. That's the reason why it was the tallest for so long. This is invented by Dr. Fajr Khan. He's called a genius for it. Now you can go up into the Sears Tower to the 103rd floor to the sky deck with views north, south, east, and west. And on the west-hand side, the ledge, which are glass boxes hanging off the side of the building with glass floors, which you can see people standing in right now. And by the way, they can see you too. Hi. That's the ledge. Who's been up on the ledge already? Anybody? You're brave. You're brave. I know you're brave because I'm brave too. I went up there. And it's where I learned that I'm afraid of heights. For real. I did not expect this to happen, but as I approached the glass, my mind went from saying, ooh, this is going to be great, to going, no! Turn back now! That is called an adrenaline high. It feels really good. It's pure full body terror followed by an adrenaline high. It feels really good. So that's one option for getting into a skyscraper, the Sears Tower. Or you could pick the Hancock. The Hancock, I'll show you later, is our 4th tallest tower. On the 94th floor, they have the observatory with views north, south, east, and west. And in the Hancock, they have something called tilt. Has anybody done tilt? Okay, you're the brave ones. Tilt is a mechanical window with handrails on it that mechanically tilts you 30 degrees out of the sidewalk. I haven't done that yet. That's new this summer. So that's new. You can check that out too. Becky, which is the best tower? Should I go up in the Hancock or should I go up into the Sears Tower? It doesn't matter. I promise. This is the straight talk. It doesn't matter. Ask anybody who's been up in both and they will tell you it doesn't matter. They're equal in quality. However, there is a third option for getting into a skyscraper in Chicago. It's the Hancock Bar. Right, locals? This is the Signature Room Lounge. This is your budget option. The bar has no cover charge. The bar has no dress code. I could go up like this. I did last night. I did. And also it's family friendly. Kids are allowed up. And for the price of a pretty pricey drink, you get that view and you get a drink. Cheers! It's a good deal.